These ancient curses were meant to stay buried, but they're waking up, and people are paying the price today. In 1991, two hikers stumbled upon something that would change history: a perfectly preserved human body frozen in the ice of the Ötztal Alps. At first glance, they thought it was just another unlucky climber, but it wasn't. It turned out to be a 5,300-year-old mummy. They called him Ötzi. Scientists were thrilled. The world was fascinated, but what followed wasn't excitement, it was death. It started with the people closest to the discovery. Helmut Simon, one of the hikers who found Ötzi, went missing during a hike years later. When they found his body, it was in almost the exact same conditions as Ötzi's, frozen in a remote area, covered in snow. Then came the researcher who placed the mummy in its case at the museum, dead from a rare blood disease. Next, the mountaineer who helped recover Ötzi's body died in an avalanche. The forensic expert who examined him fell in a car crash. The list goes on. At least 7 individuals closely tied to the mummy's discovery or research have died under strange and sometimes violent circumstances. Of course, skeptics say it's all coincidence, but when a pattern keeps repeating, people start to ask questions. Why is it that those who disturb Ötzi seem to fall into deadly misfortune? Some believe the mummy is cursed not in a Hollywood horror kind of way, but in something older, colder, more primal. A guardian of ancient secrets best left untouched. Adding to the mystery, researchers found strange tattoos on Ötzi's body, over 60 of them, and they weren't just decorative, many align with acupuncture points. Some believe they may be part of a forgotten ritual system healing, or maybe protective in nature. If those symbols were meant to ward off evil, then disturbing the mummy might have broken something that was never meant to be tampered with. Whether it's science, superstition, or something in between, Ötzi's story hasn't stopped claiming headlines or lives. This isn't just about an ancient corpse in a glass case. It's about what happens when the deep past collides with the present, and maybe fights back. It looks like an ordinary wine cabinet. Polished wood, brass fixtures, nothing that screams danger. But this small box, known as the Dybbuk Box, has terrified everyone who's come into contact with it. The story began when it was sold at an estate auction with a warning, "Don't open it." Of course someone did. So the box originally belonged to a Holocaust survivor who believed it housed a Dybbuk, which is, a restless spirit in Jewish folklore. The first buyer claimed it caused sudden nightmares, health problems, and these really strange, unexplained smells of jasmine and cat urine. Later owners reported things like failing electronics, swarms of insects, and some pretty horrific visions. Even hardened skeptics couldn't explain why their lives just spiraled after owning the box. It gained serious attention after being featured on TV and in horror films. But what really chilled people was when rapper Post Malone reportedly had a close encounter with the Dybbuk Box, and soon after suffered a series of bizarre accidents, including a plane emergency landing and a car crash. Was it coincidence or, something else? The box is now sealed in a display at a haunted museum in Las Vegas. Visitors say they feel sick, cold, or just overwhelmed near it. Some folks even refuse to look at it directly. It's locked behind glass, but honestly, no one feels entirely safe. Because if the spirit inside is real, the curse doesn't stay in the box. It follows you. Uluru, the massive red monolith rising from the heart of Australia, is one of the world's most sacred places. It's not just a rock. To the local Anangu people, it's alive with ancient power. And for decades, tourists have been warned, do not take anything from Uluru. Some ignored that, and they paid for it. Every year, park rangers receive packages from around the world, rocks, sand, or fragments of Uluru, returned by people who say their lives fell apart after taking them. Letters describe streaks of bad luck illnesses, job losses, broken families, accidents that defy explanation. One man claimed his business collapsed the week after he pocketed a stone. Another said his house burned down just days later. These aren't isolated cases. There are hundreds of such letters, many written with desperation, begging forgiveness. Some tourists even travel thousands of miles to return the items in person, terrified of what might happen if they don't. Geologists might shrug, but the emotional impact is real. Visitors say the rock feels watchful, and the Anangu people believe its sacred law can't be broken without consequence. Even though climbing Uluru was banned years ago, the curse stories haven't stopped. In fact, they've only spread further, especially on social media where people post their experiences and regrets. Whether it's a curse, karma, or a powerful cultural force, Uluru isn't something you take lightly. And for many, the lesson came too late. So, just a short boat ride from Venice, there's an island where even seasoned locals totally refuse to go. Poveglia is abandoned now, its decaying buildings just strangled by vines. But you know, it wasn't always empty. This place was once a plague quarantine station. Later, it became an asylum. And today it's considered one of the most cursed spots in Europe. Legend says over 100,000 people died here. Victims of the Black Death were dumped into pits and burned. Some were even thrown into the fire still breathing. Centuries later, mental patients claimed they heard screams at night and saw shadows in the halls. One doctor, obsessed with cruel experiments, supposedly jumped from the bell tower saying he was pushed by ghosts. The island is closed to the public, but a few brave or maybe just foolish explorers have sneaked in. They report overwhelming dread, sudden dizziness, and strange voices in the empty halls. Equipment fails without warning, cameras just shut off, and more than one visitor has said the silence on Poveglia is too quiet, as if the island is holding its breath. What makes it worse is that nothing has been done to reclaim the land. It's as if Italy itself doesn't want to touch it. Even billion-dollar developers backed away. The air, they say, just feels wrong. And for those who do set foot there, something often follows them back. Discovered in Eastern Europe in the 1800s, the woman from Lem is this small limestone statue with a blank stare and, honestly, a pretty oddly proportioned body. Archaeologists called her the goddess of death, partly because of her ancient look, but mostly because of what happened to the people who owned her. The statue passed through several wealthy collectors and, well, every family that possessed it suffered tragedy. The first owner's entire family reportedly died within just a few years. The second family met similar misfortune. When it reached a third collector, he tried to donate it to a museum, but even staff there were uncomfortable around it. One worker claimed it felt charged, kind of like static electricity in the air. Eventually, it landed in the Royal Scottish Museum, where it's kept locked in a special vault. Some curators actually refused to handle it directly. A few believe it may have been used in ritual practices, maybe as a vessel for a spirit, or as a representation of something people feared. Whether it was a curse placed by ancient hands or just an unsettling object with a really bad history, the pattern was honestly impossible to ignore. Today, the statue isn't on display to the public. Visitors often ask about it, and some staff will only speak in hushed tones. They say it's not worth risking more lives. What's odd is that there's never been an official explanation. No one talks about it openly. But the statue remains sealed away as if that's the only thing keeping its curse quiet. Right in the heart of Oakland Cemetery stands this towering black statue of an angel, wings spread, head bowed. At first glance, it looks like a monument to sorrow, but, locals see it as something way more sinister. The black angel is said to carry a curse, and honestly, touching it might just change your fate. The statue was originally bronze, but over the years it oxidized, turning this deep, unnatural black. Some folks even say this transformation wasn't chemical at all, it was supernatural. So, legends claim that anyone who touches the angel at night will be struck by misfortune, or even worse. Couples who kiss beneath its wings risk a relationship that's just doomed to fail. There are even whispers of people collapsing near it, only to later fall seriously ill. The monument was actually erected by a grieving woman after her husband and child passed away. Some say the sorrow in her heart just soaked into the statue, leaving behind more than just a memorial. Others believe the angel became a kind of gatekeeper, tied to the spirits buried beneath it. What makes this story especially chilling is that people keep testing the curse. Every year, thrill seekers visit the cemetery on Halloween, daring each other to touch the statue. Most laugh it off, but some, a small number, don't. Stories surface of car crashes days later, unexpected health scares, or months of inexplicable bad luck. The statue still stands, silent and cold. It doesn't move, it doesn't speak. But those who've felt its presence say it watches. And it remembers. In 1971, 2 small stone heads were dug up in the backyard of a house in Hexham, England. They were simple carvings, one male, one female, and didn't look particularly threatening. But once they surfaced, things started happening. Strange things. The family who found them reported objects moving on their own, doors slamming shut, and cold blasts of air from nowhere. Then it escalated. A figure began appearing part human, part beast. A werewolf-like creature that stalked their property at night. It wasn't just a fleeting shadow. One witness claimed it stood upright and growled. Word of the heads spread and they were sent to researchers. One expert took them home, only to have his own family experience similar phenomena. The beast followed the heads. Wherever they went, the atmosphere changed. Plants wilted, pets panicked. Even seasoned investigators admitted something was off. One theory is that the heads are Celtic in origin, possibly tied to a forgotten ritual or pagan god. Another claims they might be modern, but carved with intent objects of dark magic rather than archaeology. Either way, the fear they brought was very real. Eventually, the heads vanished from public record. No museum has them. No one admits to possessing them. It's as if they were hidden on purpose. But those who believe in their curse worry they could be unearthed again, because the legend says they never stay buried for long. In a small Spanish village called Belmes de la Moraleda, something truly unexplainable began happening in the 1970s. A woman named Maria Gomez was preparing lunch when she noticed a stain forming on her kitchen floor. But it wasn't just a stain, it was a face. A human face, detailed and eerie, staring up at her from the concrete. Her husband tried to destroy it, even removing the entire floor. But, days later, a new face appeared. Then another, and another. The faces varied, some male, some female, some distorted like they were caught mid-scream. Word spread and soon paranormal researchers descended on the village. What makes this case so bizarre is that the faces were analyzed extensively. Chemical tests were done. No pigments, no dyes, just unexplained image formation. Some experts called it a hoax, but honestly, no one could prove how it was done. And despite being scrubbed, sealed, and resurfaced, the faces kept returning, sometimes changing expression over time. Even more disturbing were the diggings beneath the kitchen. Human bones were found, some without skulls. Locals started whispering about unquiet spirits tied to the ground where the house stood. Some say the faces are souls trying to communicate or warn. The house is still there. Visitors say the air feels heavy. And the current owners? They've stopped trying to erase the faces. They've learned it's better to let them be. Carved deep into weathered stone, the Basque witch cross isn't just decoration, it's protection. Locals believe it repels evil, but this version is different. In the center, an eye, blood red, always watching. Some call it the Eye of Curse, claiming it doesn't just block malevolent forces, it mirrors them back. The exact design has resurfaced in old grimoires, and even on the foreheads of those said to be marked. In one story, a hiker in Navarre mocked a stone bearing the symbol, and later began carving the same shape into his own skin, without knowing why. Villagers say when the symbol appears in pairs carved and worn, something ancient has been awakened. When British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the world was stunned. Gold, treasures, and a sealed burial untouched. For over 3,000 years, it was a gateway to ancient Egypt's hidden world. But from the moment the tomb was opened, something else seemed to awaken. Something dark? The idea of the pharaoh's curse wasn't just a myth anymore, it began to feel dangerously real. Just months after the tomb was opened, Carter's financial backer, Lord Carnarvon, died suddenly from an infected mosquito bite. His dog howled and dropped dead at the exact same time back in England. The newspapers exploded with talk of an ancient curse. It wasn't long before more deaths followed. People connected to the excavation doctors, museum workers, even relatives met bizarre and early ends. One died in a mysterious fire, another from unexplained poisoning. A secretary reportedly dropped dead after merely watching the tomb being opened. While modern scientists have offered explanations, mold spores, psychological stress, coincidence the pattern was just too eerie to ignore. What added fuel to the fire was how every piece of Tutankhamun's treasure seemed to bring bad luck to those who handled it. Museums reported flickering lights, broken security systems, and staff resignations. Some visitors said they felt watched when standing near the Boy King's mask. Others claimed sudden dizziness or chest pressure, like the air was just too thick. And it hasn't stopped. In recent years, strange accidents have been reported involving new research or relocation of the artifacts. Even a documentary crew filming the tomb reported hard drive crashes, corrupted footage, and one cameraman developing a sudden illness. Some believe Tutankhamun's soul still guards his resting place, and that any disturbance invites consequences. Egyptian authorities officially deny the curse, calling it tourist legend, but some archaeologists privately admit they won't step inside the tomb again. Not out of fear, but out of respect for something they can't explain. Something that doesn't seem to rest no matter how many centuries have passed. So, in 1974, Chinese farmers digging a well stumbled upon one of the most extraordinary discoveries of the 20th century: thousands of life-sized clay soldiers buried beneath the ground near Xi'an. Each statue was unique, carved with astonishing detail and arranged in battle formation. They weren't just statues, they were guardians, protecting something much older and possibly much more dangerous. These warriors were created to serve China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, in the afterlife. But many believe they also guard his tomb, a burial chamber still sealed to this day. Chinese legends warn that disturbing the emperor's rest would bring death and disaster. And, soon after the site was uncovered, some began to suspect the curse was already in motion. Of the original 7 farmers who found the terracotta army, only one survived past middle age. Several died under strange or unfortunate circumstances, and others lost everything they had. One reportedly became homeless. Their once celebrated discovery brought them nothing but hardship. Even some of the early archaeologists and officials involved in the site's excavation suffered sudden illnesses, financial ruin, or unexplainable bad luck. To this day, the central tomb, believed to contain rivers of liquid mercury and ancient traps, remains untouched. Not because the technology isn't there, but because many experts fear what opening it might unleash. Soil tests around the tomb confirm extremely high levels of mercury, just as ancient texts described. The warnings, it seems, were never metaphorical. The terracotta army still stands silently underground, guarding secrets no one dares to fully unlock. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we're not meant to. It's one of the most famous gems in the world, a 45-carat deep blue diamond that sparkles like the night sky. The Hope Diamond is a priceless treasure displayed behind glass at the Smithsonian, but its glittering surface hides a history of misfortune, betrayal, and untimely death. Some say it's cursed, others say it's cursed on purpose. Legend traces the diamond back to India, where it was supposedly stolen from the eye of a sacred statue. The thief met a violent end. After that, every known owner of the diamond seemed to fall into ruin. In France, it belonged to King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Both were beheaded. A later owner went insane. Another was mauled by wild dogs. A wealthy heiress gave it away after her family crumbled into scandal and tragedy. The diamond passed through jewelers, royals, and millionaires, and, misfortune followed each one. Even its name comes from one of its cursed owners, Henry Philip Hope, whose family fortune declined soon after acquiring it. Every attempt to cut, sell, or reset the stone brought new rounds of strange accidents, suicides, and financial collapse. It became so feared that one later owner mailed it anonymously to the Smithsonian no-note. Just a box and a curse quietly returned. Today, the Hope Diamond rests under careful lighting, watched by cameras 24/7. But even behind all that security, visitors say it radiates something cold. Museum staff have reported flickering lights, sudden chills, and tech malfunctions near the display. Some believe the curse is dormant waiting, others say it never left. Beautiful, dangerous, unforgettable. The Hope Diamond isn't just a gem, it's a warning carved in stone. In the heart of Prague, surrounded by Gothic towers and cobbled streets, stands one of the oldest functioning astronomical clocks in the world, the Horloge. It has ticked for over 600 years, showing not just the time, but the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Tourists gather every hour to watch the procession of saints and hear the bell toll. But behind its beauty, there's a dark legend: the clock is cursed, and disturbing it can bring death. The story begins with its creator, Master Hanush. He was a genius clockmaker, and after he built the horloge, city officials feared he might recreate it elsewhere. So they had him blinded. The legend says he got his revenge by slipping back into the tower and breaking the mechanism. No one could repair it. And when they tried, tragedy followed. The city plunged into a mysterious decline, and the man who attempted to fix the clock died suddenly under unclear circumstances. For years, no one dared tamper with it. When a team finally restored it in the mid-20th century, electrical fires broke out shortly afterward in the surrounding area. Some dismissed them as coincidences until more stories began to circulate. One technician who worked on the gears developed an inexplicable illness. Another suffered a breakdown. Even today, workers claim the inside of the clock tower feels off, as if something ancient and mechanical is watching. One detail that's often overlooked is the skeleton figure on the clock, a representation of death. It rings the bell every hour with a smug nod, as if mocking the living. Locals believe that if the clock ever stops working, something terrible will happen to Prague. And oddly enough, every time it's malfunctioned, the city has faced unrest or disaster. Engineers maintain it with care now, but not without a sense of caution. No one touches the skeleton, and no one jokes about the curse. Because even in the age of satellites and digital time, this medieval machine still commands a fear that runs deeper than logic, as if time itself is keeping a score. So in the 1980s, fire departments all across the UK started noticing something really unsettling. House after house went up in flames. Entire rooms just reduced to ash. But, in the middle of all that rubble, there was always this one thing that showed up untouched, a painting of a young boy with tears streaming down his face. These weren't just one-off incidents either. It happened dozens of times. Same painting, same weird survival. People started calling it the Crying Boy Curse. The artwork, mass-produced by an Italian painter and sold in department stores, seemed harmless. Millions of homes had it hanging in living rooms and hallways. But when stories spread that houses with the painting were mysteriously catching fire and that the painting was always found unburned, fear spread fast. Firefighters began warning people to take it down. One station even refused to keep a copy inside the building, afraid it would trigger a blaze. Newspapers fanned the flames, literally. Tabloids printed pages titled "Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy," featuring stories of survivors swearing the artwork was the only item to make it through the inferno without a mark. Some described feeling watched by the painting before the fire. Others claimed their pets behaved strangely around it. Skeptics blamed the varnish on the print for being flame-resistant. But that doesn't explain the frequency, or the fact that in some cases the painting was the only object that didn't even fall off the wall. No scorch marks, no warping, just those sorrowful eyes staring out from the ashes. People began destroying the paintings en masse. Bonfires were lit, paintings were torn up, but others believed destroying it might actually unleash whatever energy was trapped inside. To this day, versions of the Crying Boy still surface in thrift stores and antique shops. Some brave collectors even seek them out, daring the curse to strike again. Most passers-by just keep walking, because once you've seen what that little boy leaves behind, you never want to see him hanging on your own wall. That's about it. Which curse do you believe in? Write in the comments, and don't forget to check out our other videos.